us and all the neighborhood kids would be running the casino. This went on for like 10 years.
Was this on the East Coast, you said?
Yeah.
I'm envisioning like Rounders and like Teddy KGB's coming to Josh's house with his little brother and they're downstairs and Teddy paid this man his money.
Hey, it's Nicole. Welcome back to the Serial Entrepreneur Show. So excited to have you and to introduce you to today's guest, Josh Kropkof. He is the co-founder of the Email Agency, an agency he opened with his brother Ben after their first business failed. There's a story there for sure. He's also an alumni of University of Miami, and not just any. He was a law student there, so I'm excited to hear what Matt has to say as we talk about legal and email. His work has helped generate $50 million in sales for different e-commerce brands, and then they're behind some of the work behind names that you know, like Children's Miracle Network or even Mixed Tiles. Hey, if you're an entrepreneur who usually fast forwards intros just like this one, this is the podcast for you. Serial Entrepreneurs. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My favorite part of your bio I didn't get to say yet is that you were known as the quiet kid, but then you found your voice while doing a magician and talk radio show. I feel like you could teach us something here today.
Yeah, those are two separate things, but I became a magician when I was in high school, like 15.
Gosh, I love it.
That's how he gets those open rates. See, his witch, warlock, magician,
mirrors,
smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh, tell me, how would you finish this sentence? You know you're an entrepreneur when?
I would say, you're an entrepreneur when your ears perk up every time you overhear someone in the store or like in the gym having a conversation where it becomes obvious that they're also an entrepreneur, like they have a business. I feel like most people that you just encounter in everyday life, you feel like you can't relate to the job anymore, when people have the typical 9 to 5. And I did that for many years. I worked in the hospitality industry for several years. So I did restaurant work and I was a bar manager for a while. I worked at a casino in Atlantic City. At one point I was security at a nightclub. So I did the whole like overnight shift and all that. So I used to be able to like relate to everything in that world. And now I guess I can't anymore. But every time I hear someone like talking and I'm like, oh, that's a business owner.
Yeah. I feel like it's a different type of radar, right? Like it's an entrepreneur dar. Like we just like hear it instantly and we're like, hey, like I'll pick up on things and I'll notice somebody like sitting in a restaurant, like near the hostess. He could just be waiting for his table. But all of a sudden I'm like, you own this place, don't you? This literally happened near my home. And he was like, how did you know? I'm like, you just like, we're oozing this presence, man. Like we just find each other. It's like a beacon.
I think it's because they're always so cheerful and delightful about what's happening in life. They're like, oh my gosh, it is such a glorious day. I think I'm going to go to a beach and work from my laptop today. Maybe that's what people say. Maybe that's what we're hearing and overhearing at the gym and whatnot. I
thought it was the weight on their shoulders that I could just feel. Like that's what I thought it was. I could just feel the presence of like,
there was definitely some sarcasm dripping through the mic at that point in time, folks, if you guys were not picking up on it.
You know what's funny about that, though? My first answer was going to be like, you're an entrepreneur when you're always like in work mode, even when you're not working. Mm-hmm. That's how I am. But I think it goes in stages because like I was talking to a business owner recently of an e-commerce business. And he was in Bali. I had to send him an email about something. He was like, it's going to take me like 4 days to get back to you because I literally check my email once a week and I work like 4 hours a week. And
life goals. Right there. Nice. Goals. Yes.
And it's like his team like is in California doing all the work all the time, but he's past that point. He's just not paying attention usually. So
okay, new goals.
Yeah. I think it depends on the stage you're at.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm not in the 4 hours. I do barely check my email though, to the detriment of others. We're like, are you going to get back to me? Yes. Just in between weird hours. I'll check it really, really early and then I won't check it until closer to middle of the day because I have to have some breathing room. So if it's not in my inbox before 5 a.m., sometimes I'm not seeing it until 10.
Oh, yeah. No, I literally have the email tab open at all times. I'm like constantly clicking back to see if I got a new email. It's really bad. I had to like force myself to X out of that to get on the podcast because I could see an email and like suddenly my brain went somewhere else.
Josh, it sounds like you could use some time in Bali, actually. Get away from the email. I mean, there is something freeing about it. I was sitting there saying to myself, like, that stupid buzz of your phone, that stupid like ding on your computer. There is something about productivity, I feel, that decreases, at least for some of us, especially if you are maybe in the fire industry, I'll call it. Like if you are always putting out fires or problems and people are sending you issues to resolve,
Oh,
because
yeah.
then things start to become, urgent versus important and things like that. Now you're pulling yourself out of the project or whatever you're working on at that point in time, just to even assess, frankly, is it something I need to do right now? Is it something that can wait? Is it something I can give out to my team?
Yeah, there's
Do
a great book on that, by the way, called Deep Work by Cal Newport. If you've never heard of it, definitely recommend. It's literally about that, like just how to actually shut off distractions and get work done.
So the
But
book had a
I,
meaningful impact on you, Josh, right? As you were worried about your email going
Yes,
off.
he's
yeah,
keeping his email tab open.
yeah,
I mean, but the email's the nature of his work. In fact,
I
Matt,
understand.
I want to know for lawyers and attorneys everywhere. I mean, what is your inbox like? Because urgent, important. I mean, anybody who's coming to you, sometimes they think that the world's on fire, but somehow you're managing just fine.
Well,
How are you
I
doing? You got,
start with a
there's like special
really
lawyer like tabs, like you have like primary, social,
well,
promotions, and then like lawyers.
well, when we graduate law school, we're issued a really, really big pillow for our big heads. And it allows us to sleep very well at night, knowing that is anything really urgent? Is anything really important? I don't want to diminish stuff. Of course, there's practicing attorneys that if you're getting somebody out of jail or trying to keep somebody from going to jail, those are always
Yeah.
important things. But that's the nice thing I would say about my area of law. It's never really a life or death thing. Worst case scenario, it's going to cost money to fix, right? It's going to cost time to fix, but no one's losing their kids. It's things that you can deal with.
That's what I was thinking. But
Yeah.
I was thinking they actually just assign you not a pillow, but just an assistant. Like they just like pair up an assistant as soon as you leave law school.
Be ideal. It'd be ideal.
Yeah. Okay, so
Anyways.
Josh, tell us, what do you do? Tell me about the business you own currently. Maybe share a little bit about the past business too.
I'll tell you about the business I have currently. The past business one's a whole story, but we could get into that. The email agency is the name of the business. So we do email marketing, which is a huge surprise with a name like that. So I started this business with my brother in his college apartment back in 2018. We do email marketing and text message marketing primarily for e-commerce businesses. So people that sell physical products online. To date, we've created strategies for 124 different e-commerce brands. We're direct response email marketing, which is actually pretty different. Most like e-commerce brands, if you see their email marketing, it usually looks kind of like a billboard. It's like a big image block with some, products on it and some buttons. We are way more about like the personality driven, like human to human verbal communication through email. So we kind of mix the two together. So our emails have a very personal feel, usually written from the founder or somebody prominent at the company or even a fan of the product. And we do that because it gets way better results, better conversions and sales. So that's kind of our specialty in the market. Most of our competitors don't do that.
So is that what they call it? There's direct response, what you do, and then is that what they call the other ones? Billboard emails? Or do they
No,
call it something else?
that's what I call it. They just call it email.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Okay.
kind of like two worlds when it comes to email marketing, because if you come from like business or real estate or law or any kind of B2B or travel companies and tourism or like information marketing, like health or dating, any of that, and you say email marketing, they are picturing like mostly text, like just, personalized email marketing. Whereas if you are in e-commerce and you sell clothes or you sell furniture or like any type of product, those businesses, you say email marketing and they picture like,
Like they're picturing like a little
yeah,
mini store that they buy from. So you're saying you blend those two worlds more so?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We saw this huge gap where we always like get emails from any kind of e-commerce store that you can think of and think like, how come they do it so different, like than what we've been doing for the last couple of years and from like what we've learned? Why do e-commerce brands not do that? And the answer is actually complicated. It has something to do with history and something to do with just kind of turned out that way. But there's been no real crossover in these worlds, but we're trying to do that. It's an uphill battle.
It's interesting to me because as we're on the show right now, I just went and just scrolled through 5 or 6 emails. And I don't
Mhm.
think I ever even noticed this until today as I'm sitting here. I just looked at it like one of the cigar stores I buy from, right? So what they do is
Okay.
it's the typical, thing across the top. It looks like an e-commerce type of store and they give you a big image with the promotion deal and shop here, buy now. And they might have 3 or 4 products in smaller tiles or
Mhm.
whatever you want to call them right below there. And then that's it, right? It's just
Yeah.
that. That is the email. It's the sale. It's the promotional item that they're trying to push down your throat. I went to about 4 or 5 other different, we'll call them, I don't know, content-based, informational-based type. And you're right. Some of them have a very just natural, looks like they just sent me an email from work kind of feel. Can you give me a brief synopsis of why that pattern is the way it is then? I know you said it's some historical
it has to do with sort of like where you learn from. So like the ones that you're talking about that are more informational or content focused businesses, like when they built their business and they emulated other businesses, that was the way that those businesses were doing it. So it kind of gets passed down. And in today's online world, there are more traditional direct response type of businesses. Like, yeah, coaching would be one, dating would be another, weight loss is another one, right? But I think a lot of where like e-commerce businesses originate could be from more venture capital backed type things, or even if it's bootstrapped, a lot of times they're going to emulate the types of emails that they see brands in their space doing. And it just so happens that those types of brands have been advertising that way. What's interesting though is most physical products, cosmetics is a great example, skincare, that kind of thing. Today, skincare brands use email marketing that use very little copy in their emails, very just like,
Motion
image
based.
based.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
emails about the product. You're going to see the customer sometimes, or else you're just going to see the product. But cosmetics and skincare has a history steeped in direct response marketing. Back in the 50s and 60s, like you would get long form copy in a newspaper that would sell that product directly. And it was from like the godfathers of advertising, right? There's a lot of physical product industries that you can really point to with that. I will make this distinction real quick, which is that not every e-commerce brand should or like would benefit from direct response emails. If your product is like really a pretty simple commodity, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like one that always comes up, I talk to these kinds of businesses every once in a while, phone case companies. That's like a big one where I guess people drop ship these phone cases. And every time I talk to one of them, I'm like, what we do is not really like going to benefit you that much, because if you're going to buy a phone case, I do just want to see what it looks like. You can list the features and whatever, but I don't really need a whole personality behind it. Any product that solves a problem. So like skincare is one that solves a problem. Higher ticket products, like we have a client who sells whiskey barrel furniture, but he mostly sells to consumers who get them in their house for like redoing a basement, things like that. Those sell really well with longer form copy. Or it's just a more considered purchase. It's not something that you're just going to buy on a whim.
Yeah, I think the big one that I see is B2B. You said like where people learn it. So B2B has done it this way. And then B2C has taken an easier route. And I think that's worked for a while. Right. But now, even with the tabs, all those promotions are hitting over there because Google Workspace or Gmail will pop them into another tab because it's filtering all the time to see that HTML headers. So now,
Mhm.
Matt, you might know about that cigar place, for example,
Mhm.
that if you want the Father's Day deal that's going to likely come up, you probably should check your promotions tab. So I think that that's just worked for a long time, but I think more and more of them have to change something different if they realize, like I love that you said a considered purchase. I
Right.
think about how I follow the founder of Spanx, Sarah Blakely. Like they can send out their regular stuff that can look like a little mini store. That's fine. And I'm sure we're all going to buy from it. But if
Mhm.
anytime Sarah, like from the desk of Sarah, the founder, like whatever she shares, or like the last time she took her 20 friends on another trip around the world for her birthday, like that would be of interest, right? Because it's her
Mhm.
story. And I don't know that she's necessarily considered purchase, although some of her stuff's pretty pricey. Maybe I do pause for a second and to hear the story behind it, or to know, in my case, right, I am supporting another entrepreneur. It's pretty inspiring all the time. That would be pretty interesting to consider because they've launched out from so many different products that they do. And when she does post something, like there's so much engagement that I'm sure she'd see that as well. My point is, I feel like, yeah, I think that that's where it kind of comes from, is like B2B always had to do this and B2C didn't have to, but it sounds like they may need to start.
Yeah, it's not to say that it's all black and white. The problem that we have with email marketing today is that it becomes just sort of stale, right? Like I become unengaged because there's nothing really interesting going on. You're sending me the same stuff all the time. So like if I
Yeah.
know what the next email is going to look like, if I know what's going to be in it, if I can tell exactly from the subject line that surprise, surprise, it's another deal, then I really don't care. Like at some point, I'm not really into it anymore. Maybe I have bought, maybe I haven't. People actually say this term too. It's buy or die mentality. Like you get people on the email list, and the strategy is sort of you just hit them as many times as you can until they either buy or they die, they fall off, they don't pay attention anymore. So, what you can do to really have a different effect is you can instill a lot of variety in the types of emails you're sending. So, they don't really know, is this going to be a sale? Is it going to be an interesting, blog style content? I'm not a big fan of linking to a blog in an email. Like there's some brands I'll see who like will put like 3 or 4 sentences of an article and then say read more. I'm not a huge fan of that. You would actually build better engagement in the email program if you actually just, I'm not saying you put a 3,000 word blog article in your email, but maybe 300 word piece of content about the same thing, because you're training people that there's valuable stuff in the email. That's what you want to do. There's either a piece of advice in there, or maybe there's FAQs about this product if it is a more considered purchase. I have objections, I have questions, I'm looking at other alternatives. I need to see more about it. So things like that, along with like, can you tell me a story about somebody who used the product before? And by the way, everything I'm saying applies to service-based businesses too. Like this is the same kind of stuff that you do to keep people engaged. And the
Mhm.
difference is like, if you're going to do the buy or die type of email marketing, you're not getting the value out of the asset of your email list. Like picture a pie chart, and if the email list is 100,000 people, you're getting a sliver of that pie that's actually worth something. And, over time, you're going to get more people on the list. So the pie is going to grow, but you're only going to get this little sliver because the people that aren't engaging in the first like 7 to 10 emails are probably not coming back. Whereas if you do a more direct response style and you have a lot more engaging content, you're going to capture a greater piece of that pie. It works long term too, because if people are staying engaged, even if they're not buying today, they might buy next year, as long as they're not unsubscribing or disengaging because your stuff's just not that interesting.
Tell me how you got here now, where you're at today.
So people that go to the University of Miami for law school, it's kind of like known that about a third of the class is really there to become a lawyer. And then there's another third that's like kind of trying to figure it out. And then there's another third that have no interest at all in the law, and they're just there because they want to extend their partying lifestyle and they want to live in Miami. I fell more into the second category. Like I went to school for hospitality undergrad at Stockton University in New Jersey. I mentioned to you guys earlier how I've had like a lot of odd jobs and things like working at the casinos. But I was in there because I thought I wanted to own a casino or like run a resort, like that kind of thing. And I think I kind of got, what do you call it, like disillusioned when I realized that like that degree was never going to help get that. Like I knew other people in the casino hotel that I worked in who had graduated with the same degree 10 years ago, and they were still working the same position I was. So
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, this is not the answer.
Mhm.
So I was interested in the law. I took like a few pre-law classes for like an elective or some
Right.
requirement. And the professor there was like, go to law school. Like you'd be really good at it. So I was kind of into it for like the first year. And then by the second year, I was like, total respect. But like, I can't do this. I can't wake up every day and like be in this, like with this legal stuff in my head all the time and like going in and out of court, dealing with clients and trying to interpret their situation. It wasn't for me. At the same time, got into digital marketing. I was interested in learning how to date, how to get better with women. I found this email newsletter called Dating Advice Daily, and it was written by a guy who was like 23 or 24 at the time, for other guys in college who were just trying to get better at this aspect of their life. So I had sort of followed this guy's email newsletters for a while. Fast forward, I'm in law school, and he sort of pivots to teaching about email marketing and digital marketing. And he's kind of revealing how he became a millionaire at 24 years old with this newsletter and these different programs and coaching and things that he did for men's dating advice. So my brother and I went to this conference he was holding in Las Vegas, and we didn't even know what to expect. Like we knew it was going to involve more than just like dating advice, but there was like none of that stuff. It was all about how to do digital marketing, build a business online. And it wasn't just him, it was all these big time internet millionaires. And they were getting on stage and talking about their journeys of how they got rich on the internet. And it was like the common thread with all of them is you start an email list, you create a product, and then you build an email list and you grow that list. And then you write emails every day and you sell to that list. And like every single one of them had become millionaires in like a really short period of time. So that's what we wanted to do. But that
And you just
didn't
paid like the
exactly.
low fee of like 20K to get started with them to learn more.
No, I think where we went wrong is like we didn't have any real world experience. Like we didn't have anything to teach. So we came up with basically this idea with a friend where we taught body language. Like we built this body language product, and that's what we tried to sell. It didn't really work, mostly because we didn't know what we were doing. We were kind of like learning as we went to try to build the business. But I think the problem was we didn't really have any real life value to show. We just like thought we could coach something that we had knowledge in, but hadn't really done. So a lot of mistakes along the way. But what came out of it was email marketing. And then what came from that was doing email marketing for other businesses. And that's how this business was born.
What was that first big, strike of the match? Realize, oh man, we could do this instead. We could take our skill set and just do it for other people.
Well, I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't. There's one person responsible. His name is Mike Becker. He's an email copywriter. We basically met through a friend online who he was coaching at the time other people how to do email copywriting as a service for other businesses. So we kind of came across him at the right time and he mentored us. And so what ended up kind of starting our business off, we had this idea like, what if we just like found all these people who were advertising stuff to us? So we would just like be on Facebook and like click the ad. And then next thing you know, you refresh your page and you're getting ads from all their competitors. And so we would start researching these companies, find their key people, and then we would email them cold and say, hey, we started this business called the Email Agency, and we specialize in doing email marketing for e-commerce businesses. But at the time in 2018, there weren't a lot of agencies specializing in this. Like even email marketing for e-commerce, it was mostly ads, SEO, all that kind of stuff. Today, it's crazy though, because I do competitor research now, and there's so many that do the exact same thing we do, except that we have this sort of direct response piece of it that most email agencies don't.
So you mentioned your brother. I come from a
Yeah.
long line of entrepreneurs that all work together, and outsiders sometimes wonder how we can eat at the same table and discuss the things that they do. Lots of aunts and uncles. There's 11 of them. Many of them
That's
own their
cool.
own thing. And yeah. And so family parties are also quasi work meetings if they need to catch up on something. They get pretty heated. So
Yeah.
I always like look from an outsider's perspective every once in a while. Like they think we're nuts, but they're still here. They're still hanging out with
Yeah.
us on this 4th of July or whatever it is. So it
Cool.
makes for an interesting dynamic, right? And you probably have that too. So how is it working with family?
It's cool because I think I'm very fortunate. This is something I like learned over the years to recognize because I think a lot of people don't have this. We were just really close growing up, and he's 5 years younger than me, and it's just us two. We didn't have any other siblings, but my parents made it very clear you're responsible for him and like he's included in what you do. You're in this world together. So we started doing entrepreneurship stuff when we were kids. We built a casino in my parents' basement. And we invited all the like neighbors over and friends, and like us and all the neighborhood kids would be running the casino. This went on for like 10 years, like since I was in
Whoa.
Was
elementary
there
school
magic shows?
till I graduated.
That's also what I need to know.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
When later on, yeah, there were magic shows.
Wait, was this on the East Coast, you said?
Yeah,
I'm envisioning like rounders and like Teddy KGB's coming to Josh's house with his little brother and they're downstairs and Teddy
Yeah.
paid
Yes.
his man his money. Was that stuff
Well,
happening or nothing that cool?
Not quite, because we didn't
All
use
right.
real money. Yeah,
All right.
it was
never
like
mind.
Monopoly money, but we had
Okay.
like
Yeah,
prizes
yeah.
people could win. So like we would
Mhm.
have friends and their parents would come over and like their cousins and family. So like it grew to a point like where we would just like invest in this stuff. Like I spent my bar mitzvah money on a blackjack table, literally. And
That's
like
awesome.
we built a crafts table. We had some help from my grandpa and my mom. She like drew the layout. My grandpa helped with like the walls of the table. Eventually I got a roulette wheel on auction from eBay back in the day.
The quiet
Um,
kid. I just want to point out the
Yeah,
quiet
yeah,
kid.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
always
that's
the
what he's
quiet
doing
ones.
now.
It's always the quiet ones.
So I think what's relevant about it is that like even to this day, we work with our friends. So like our main operations guy is one of our friends from the neighborhood, all the
Oh,
way
that's
going
cool.
all the way back.
That's
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That said, we actually started the business with another friend, a third partner, and like we had a falling out a few years back and he left the business, but he was like another one, who we knew our whole
Yeah.
lives. So people say like don't go into business with friends. I think definitely go into business with friends. It's harder in some ways, but it's more of a worthwhile experience, I think. And then basically everyone that comes into the business now, I think they get the sense of like belonging to a friend group, and we try to make that be our culture. Like we're a tight knit group. I think it'll be a challenge as we grow. Like we only have 9 people in the company right now, but when we have like 70 or 80 or something, I'm sure it'll be, harder. My brother and I have always been, like with this business, the stressful thing, sort of like what you alluded to, is like you're always kind of working. So like family get togethers, but more so like when it's just us, like if we go to the beach or something, like, cause we're down here in Tampa, St. Pete, Like, we'll have trips where we'll just kind of go to the beach and walk for like 2 hours and just try to get through a problem we're working on in the business. And we fight, obviously, like we have our differences. And there's been ups and downs, in those days of kind of like getting it off the ground. We almost killed each other in that like studio apartment. But
Yeah.
I think you go through that, you come out the other side, and you have hopefully a stronger foundation for the business. So I
Yes.
definitely think family, friends, that's great. I hope that I'm saying that till the day I die.
I like that. I like that perspective. And you even had a falling out, and yet you're still saying, like, yeah, no, I still feel this way. I think that's
Yeah.
amazing. I think you saying that's more worthwhile, even like that resonates with me. I love the idea of working with family, and I do. Actually, I do, don't I, Matt? Anyway, I
You
do.
do, yeah.
And then I even try to find other ways to work with family because I think it's really, really special. And there are some places it's a shortcut, right? Like they know you to your core. That's for sure.
They're going to be honest all the time, which is if you have a partner that you don't know as well, they don't have as much of a motivation to be straight up with you.
So full circle,
Yeah.
obviously, we talked about how you initially started getting into this whole thing because of following the dating newsletter. And we're talking about
Mhm.
working with family. So I've got to ask you this question. Was there ever success in finding a significant other or no?
Oh, it's still a work in
Still
progress.
work in progress. The
Yeah.
reason why, and a follow-up question, I'd like to know your response with working with family
Mhm.
after that, because it's
Right.
always the joke that like, I mean, I always say my wife's my partner in crime for everything. I include her in everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes I find that they take on the same stress levels. And I think you said it best when you talked about your brother. They're going to tell you the truth. At
Mhm.
some point in time, you're going to get the truth. My wife might not tell me, hey, don't do this, or I don't like this. But it's
Right.
going to come up, and it's going to come up probably pretty darn soon if it's nagging at her or something she wants to talk about regarding the business, because
Yeah.
you see them every day. You're around them. You're seeing them at holidays, and they will be there long after this business is hopefully, sold off for billions of dollars for you, right? Or grown to the point where, you're outsourcing it. But it's the
Yeah.
idea that he's always going to be there. So at the end of the day, you have to work through those things. And that's why I was just making the analogy with
Yeah.
significant others too.
Yeah, well, something I can say to that is I've seen this like happen a couple ways. So like someone in my family, I won't say who, but somebody has a business and maybe decades ago now had a spouse who he brought into the business and things did not go well and that ended. Fast forward, different woman, they're married. I believe she's involved in the business and it does go well now. So I think it can definitely work both
Yeah.
ways. I've heard this before, like your business is a reflection on your life sometimes. It's like a
Mhm.
mirror. So like if things aren't going right in your life, that's going to bleed into your business and like the other way around. I think the key component for me, which is hard to find, is the ability to just like drop the place you live in and go and live somewhere else if it comes up or go and travel somewhere. It basically like the ability to just cut those roots and like realize you're not a tree and you can travel. I think it's better these days, but I think a lot of people are very committed to like, no, my family is here. This is where I am. I am not that person. I always move around. Like I live in Tampa, St. Pete right now, but I'm probably going to live in Scottsdale, Arizona next year or the year after. And then after that, I'm probably going to live in California and then I might live somewhere else. And so I want someone who's just willing to just keep dropping it and move with me every time. And that's kind of
Yeah.
hard to find.
I can't wait to clip this in about, I don't know, let's say 8 years, Matt. What do you say? I'm going to pull a Gary V moment right now. Clip this in about 8 years when you're like, Nicole, that next bit you just said, yeah, I get it now. Because I love that. You want to move and you want all these different experiences and places. But I'm going to tell you what, if there's a relationship with your parents still or her parents one day, man, is it easy when there is a papa, a Grammy, a granddad nearby that
I
take care
know.
of those littles because they took care of you. They get this second
Oh,
chance
yeah.
around that they get to hang out with them and they get to spoil them. But my goodness, that's the time that you're like, okay, I kind of get this roots thing and staying near family because it is so easy to be like, yeah, guys, 8 years, mark it down. I can't wait. Can't
There
wait,
you go.
can't wait, can't wait, can't wait. So because you support founders, entrepreneurs, small teams, big teams, all sorts of sizes, I'm guessing. I want to ask you this because Google and Yahoo have made a whole lot of changes, right? They warned us, I think, as early as December that rollouts would be coming in February for emails. And frankly, I love all the changes that are coming up because my background, I came from an email deliverability software company. They were
Oh, yeah.
one of the few that they really were like guardians to like even how they vetted clients. They could miss out on big revenue because they wanted to make sure that whoever they were working with was sending out stuff people wanted to open. So they're always really careful. I understood that on the basics, that, well, yeah, if you're not in the inbox, you're not being read. But no, they were like, no, like truly, if you're not in the inbox, you're not being read. No one's getting a purchase. We can't prove that our clients are successful. So it really drove home the point, like email deliverability is so important. So tell me what this means for your clients
So most of our clients use Klaviyo, which is an email software, and thankfully Klaviyo takes care of pretty much all that. So we haven't had to do much, but what I can say is I don't think it's becoming harder to do email marketing. It's becoming more crucial to be interesting in your emails to actually keep people engaged because all they're doing is making it easier for people to unsubscribe, making it easier to make sure that people aren't going to get your emails if you're not using best practices. But like best practices, kind of a stupid blanket term. I would say like what it really means is just talk like a person in your emails, like talk like you would if you're having a cup of coffee with a friend or, going for a walk. Like don't talk super promotional. Don't talk super professional. It should sound like a conversation. If you can make your emails more conversational and like have that just like human to human tone, that will go a long way towards keeping people engaged, keeping them from hitting unsubscribe or reporting you as spam, and making them actually want to engage with whatever you're sending. It's the people who are not doing that, the people who do treat the inbox like a magazine rack, they're the ones who are going to have problems.
So, Josh, let me ask you this. Are you using behavioral or personality science by understanding maybe click through rates or open rates? And based upon that, are you doing more like segmentation? So you're getting more and more specific to the person. So you're talking to the person the way they want to be spoken to, or
Yeah, they just send
Yes.
fine print just to all the lawyers, for example. Just all the fine print. That's just what they just send straight.
I'm
um,
just saying, like, that was my
Well, this is
marketing. Like,
good.
look at me
This
go.
is
I said
good. This is good. I like it.
segmentation,
I like
highlight,
yeah.
it.
highlight
I know.
segmentation.
Wait.
Look
Oh,
at me.
yeah.
Open rate, click
Look
through.
at that. Throwing it all
Yeah,
out. I
throwing
love
it
it. I
all.
love it.
And I'm spent. Woo, someone give me a cigarette. I'm done.
Cigar, hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think not everybody should do this because it kind of depends. Like if you have a small business, if you are a lawyer, like you kind of know your audience. I mean, you can segment them. Like I'm sure you have like different situations, different types of cases, different maybe types of law that you practice where
Mhm.
you can segment. But I just don't want people to think like you have to do it that way because you don't. But yes, like for our clients in e-commerce, definitely like the more zero party data we can collect on the front end of like letting us know a little bit more of what they're looking for. You
Mhm.
can definitely use that to segment the types of messages. I think the most basic one though that a lot of companies aren't doing and they should be is
Mhm.
whether or not the person is a customer. So like you get tons of people signing up to your email list all the time, but then you're kind of sending the same exact messaging and the same exact sales and promotions out to everybody. People are at two different places in the customer journey. So like if they've actually bought from you before, then they should be talked to a little bit different than the people who have never pulled the trigger because they're still on the fence. They have a lot of objections. They're really not sure if you're a brand that they even want to give money to. Those people need a little bit more nurturing. They need a little bit more, different types of messaging. Base level, like every company I think should do that, should segment based on whether or not somebody's bought from you.
Okay.
What is one of the key lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur? Maybe it's something you find yourself saying again and again, like a mantra.
Don't ride the roller coaster. So there's ups and downs in the business. Everything's kind of in cycles. I have learned that when one thing is not working out, usually like 100 more things are not going to work out. And then when one thing does work out, like 100 more are working out. You can get caught up in the peaks and the valleys to where you feel like this high when everything's going great and then you crash and everything's going, shitty. Then you're depressed. But I try my best to have this level mindset no matter what's going on.
I like it.
How would you define your entrepreneurial success, Josh?
I don't think I'll ever be at that point because my plan is to grow this agency to a multi-million dollar agency and then move on to productions. And then at some point, I want to have commercial real estate and eventually actually own a casino. So I think success is just like that you're making progress towards that goal, staying on your path that you set. And you're always going towards it. And I think if you ever feel like you got there, I feel like that's a bad sign.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how do we get in touch with you? How does someone learn how to work with you or learn more from you?
Just go to www.theemailagency.com. You can click to get a free audit. We do free audits of companies' email programs. And if you are someone who's starting a business or you just want to learn how to do better email marketing for yourself, go to emailprofitscheatsheet.com and download the free guide on how to build a seven-figure email program from scratch.
Hey, it's Nicole, and that's the end of the interview. But stick around. This is the part where Matt and I break it all down and give you our favorite takeaways. Listen in.
All right, Nicole. So, like for me, the big thing that I heard, and it's something I've actually been doing a little bit more of some soul searching about myself. And it's because of, frankly, my kiddos. When we asked him about how do you define success, when does he know he's made it, right? He kind of gave an answer very similar to a lot of people on the show have done, which is like, I don't know if you really ever do. You think about the next thing that you want to do. And it seems like every time I'm around my kids, they're always, what's next? What's next? What's next? And my wife goes, I wonder where they get that from. Because I don't ever think about, is there a certain dollar amount or a certain objective? All those things are a frame of reference because if it allows me to do the next thing that I want to go accomplish in this world or the next thing that I want to go build, the next thing I want to make money off of, it's defining characteristic. And so I totally related to him when he said, how does he know he's successful? It's because he's doing the next thing, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I feel seen and attacked. I get it. I get it. I get it thoroughly.
Yeah.
Here's one for me. Variety is a spice of life. You can work yourself into craziness if you don't have a plan for things. And one of the plans has to be that you have to mix up your marketing a little bit, right? Your email marketing can't just be the stale, like, here's the promotion, here's the promotion. Although effective that you're going to get people who are going to buy a promotion, he just kind of said to us, it's more important if we just have a variety, if there is a story, if there is something engaging. And I think about my own email marketing. It's suffered here recently because we've lost a team member. And so our regular weekly cadence of like, are we going to be funny this week? Are we just going to give an email that is about something that is for sale and coming up? We've had to change it up. And I think for the better, we started doing an email digest, for example, of like the month of shows so that people can meet 5 founders in 5 minutes, for example.
Yeah.
So that changed, I think, for the better, and it's giving somebody something a little bit different, but we can still get back to our funny memes. That's what's important, is keep it interesting so people don't know what they're opening every single time.
Yeah.
That was my big one.
Yeah.
I am still wondering, though, about that dating question for sure. I want to go talk to the guy that put out that daily newsletter and be like, hey, this guy's still dating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Were you successful? But I suppose that's what they were trying to be successful in, is dating. Maybe not date to get married. So I thought that was a funny takeaway too.
Yeah, it was good. It was great.
Well, folks, you know what we always say, if you're listening,
Keep listening.
you've been listening to the Serial Entrepreneur Show, produced by the team here at SmartCookie Media.